Good evening. As mentioned, I'm happy to be presenting this evening on social emotional learning in Springford. Before we begin the presentation, I want to lay the roadmap of what we're going to discuss and what we'll cover. We're going to start by discussing the common definitions and practices of social emotional learning. You'll hear the phrase SEL, that stands for social emotional learning. This is because I know that we have several different understandings on what SEL is, and I want to build a common working foundation so that we're all working off the same idea of what SEL is in this presentation. The primary focus of this presentation, however, is to shift into not just the common definitions, but what we are doing in Springford and what social emotional learning looks like for us. And then we'll wrap up with how we're supporting this with professional development. First, I'd like to begin with the Pennsylvania Department of Education. That tends to be one of our go-tos for resources. The Pennsylvania Department of Education focuses on the process of learning and applying skills of self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. I included a link here as well because on the Department of Education website, there are several resources, not only for social emotional learning, but to help us really understand that continuum of skills as defined by PDE. In addition, there's another resource that we reference, the Collaborative for Academic, Social,
Dr. Murray, I apologize. We have a breaking announcement. Due to the ongoing power outages in our area, our YouTube stream is experiencing buffering issues. We will have a backup recording that will be posted Tuesday morning should we lose our live stream feed on YouTube, which seems to be very imminent. So letting the community know.
Great, thank you.
Sorry about that.
So would you like me to continue with the presentation?
Yes.
Just knowing that we're going to have it recorded and posted later?
Yes, please.
Great. So the CASEL, the Collaborative for Academic and Social Emotional Learning, is another resource. It's often referred to as CASEL, and it's defined by some of the similar attributes as what PDE uses as well. It focuses on effectively applying the knowledge, attitudes, skills, and necessary understandings to manage emotions, set and achieve positive goals, feel and show empathy for others, establish and maintain positive relationships, and so forth. So you're going to see commonalities between them. But one of the things I want to stress is that we use these in Springford as resources. We don't use the CASEL framework as is, and that's the only resource we use. We reference it. We don't use everything from PDE as is, we reference it. You'll also see this is a connection with the college and career readiness skills. There is a continuum of skills that Pennsylvania puts out that identifies how we prepare students for college and career readiness after secondary education. So with this, you're going to see a lot of the commonalities as well. They do have a continuum of skills that are focused on skills such as self-awareness and self-management, establishing and maintaining relationships, social problem-solving skills, and so forth. So all of this kind of ties back to those same themes, and it's built a lot off of the CASEL framework here. The CASEL framework is divided into 5 different categories. Again, you'll see that same terminology, but I wanted to provide you with a little bit more depth of some of the skills. For example, when we're looking at self-management, that includes skills such as impulse control, stress management, self-discipline, self-motivation, goal setting, and organizational skills. So you'll see a wide range of skills that are included under this overall umbrella of social emotional learning. So now let's shift over to what this looks like in Springford. As I mentioned, the resources I just shared are pieces that we pull from to build our SEL framework and how we function within Springford. What's important about this is when we look at our goals, we look at what are really those skills to impact an effective learning environment, and that's truly our focus. What does it take for students to be successful in a learning environment? This includes skills such as effective communication, recognizing and setting goals, organizational skills and those executive functioning skills, engaging in respectful discourse, recognizing and respecting other points of view, etc. We also summarized from our wellness committee. We do have a district wellness committee which focuses on overall student and staff wellness, and I asked them, how do you define SEL? What does SEL mean to you? And really what the overall theme that I received from the Wellness Committee is, are students in the right frame of mind to access their academics? Are they overall experiencing that wellness that allows them to come into the door and get prepared to learn about fractions, get prepared to learn the academic skills that we know we need to have? It's also about helping students recognize when they need help, whether or not that's academic help, social emotional help, mental health, but making sure that students know and understand where their avenues are for getting help. It's also focusing on connections, making people feel like they are connected and have a good environment that is warm and welcoming to them. And then finally, they also discuss the importance of helping students understand their emotions, helping students understand how their brains and bodies work, and understand how to control their emotions and also their reactions to that. So let's talk a little bit about SEL within the curriculum. Ultimately, in short, Springford doesn't have a specific SEL curriculum. As I mentioned before, we're pulling from various programs, various resources. I can't say that we have one program that we use and say that's our SEL program. We're looking to integrate our SEL skills to find that natural merge between the curriculum and the SEL skills as they fit appropriately. So for example, one of our skills we might be working on are current events, recognizing multiple perspectives on an issue. The academic skills may include topics such as identifying credible resources, economic impact, comparing historical examples. But what we want students to do with that is to engage in student discourse. We want them to develop and take a perspective, their own perspective. We want them to be able to communicate. We want them to be able to identify their emotions. Maybe some events might trigger emotions for students, and we want them to be able to manage that. So in short, we're expecting students to do more with the content. We don't want them just to remember the who, what, where, when, why, how, and then answer multiple choice questions. We want them to understand, we want them to develop their own perspective, and look at those larger impacts. And then we want them to engage with conversations with other students about that. So it's important that they need to have the skills to be able to do that effectively. I have heard the idea that schools should just focus on academics. While academic success is certainly a priority for us, to achieve the mission of the district, we need to focus on how we can support and build social-emotional skills to do that successfully. We're working with people, young people. Our district mission is to cultivate excellence, embrace inclusivity, and foster wellness, and purposefully integrate technology. So to achieve this, we need to include those social-emotional skills to foster the wellness and embrace the inclusivity. So I want to take for a moment to address some of the misconceptions about social-emotional learning. There are a lot out there. That's why I want to focus on what the definition of it is, and then focus and shift that to what we do in Springford. One of the misconceptions is that social-emotional learning focuses on concepts of privilege and using identity to discuss topics around privilege. In Springford, this is not an SEL focus for us. There is a focus on developing self-awareness skills and helping students identify and reflect on their strengths and grow. There's also another misconception that the goal of SEL is to change social norms. While we encourage diverse perspectives, we're also encouraging that all students are respected even when those perspectives are different. We're encouraging students to learn and develop their own perspectives, teaching students to engage in conversations and debate with alternative viewpoints, and to focus again on the learning environment. There's also a misconception that SEL teaches topics such as gender, family roles, and dynamics. Springford also does not have explicit SEL instruction in this area, but there is that focus on treating all with respect. Another misconception is that social-emotional learning replaces family values and changes the family values and beliefs. Again, this is not the intent of Springford's social-emotional learning. We're looking at the skills, that we're focusing on that are needed to support that healthy learning environment. And then finally, social-emotional learning is a mental health intervention. It is true that Springford provides a lot of mental health supports and that there are interventions as students need them, but the goal of social-emotional learning is not a mental health support. The goal of social-emotional learning is to help students build their toolbox first, so that as students need these skills, as they come up, they can reach to that skill to help manage their stress, or that reach to that skill that helps organization and other executive functioning to help make some of those mental health interventions unnecessary. We also see examples of social-emotional learning with our instructional policy. I'm going to focus for a minute on Policy 119, current events. We did a lot of work on this over the last couple of years. The administrative regulations developed a purpose statement that really focused on how we address current events. And within the current events, you'll see highlighted in yellow the evidence of that interweaving social-emotional skills. For example, again, you heard me say this multiple times, develop their own perspective and understanding. Students engaging in thoughtful discourse. Students taking perspectives, understanding that there may be diverse opposing views. These are all important skills within social emotional that we have to teach students. We can't expect them to just know how to do them. In addition, we have a bullying prevention plan. This was developed well before I was here. In 2018, this plan was developed. It includes information such as definitions, what is bullying behavior, the process for reporting and investigating, and then also professional development and student education. Here's a quick snapshot of what is in that document. This is a great chart that outlines what qualifies as bullying behavior. On the left, you'll see definitions of conflict versus a comment that's rude, versus a comment that's mean, and a comment that's bullying. So within here, you'll see that there are also elements of those social-emotional skills I mentioned. For example, all parties will accept responsibility. In addition, we see examples of social-emotional learning within our discipline and our restorative practices. Discipline is the process of holding others accountable through consequences, whereas restorative practice is really focusing on taking responsibility, the conflict resolution. It's the education behind those consequences, behind the discipline. So let me give you an example. If we have two students that are arguing and not getting along, those behaviors may become pervasive to the point where it impacts the learning environment and the process. So instead of just applying discipline and consequences, we're really looking at the restorative practices, which might include a conversation with the students, brainstorming solutions, choosing a solution, and making sure that it is more of a learning opportunity for the students so that they grow and don't repeat those behaviors. In addition, many of our buildings have a school-wide positive behavior program. The school-wide positive behavior program is a shift towards positive expectations and school culture. It places the focus on what you should do rather than what you should not do. It's very difficult to create a list of all of the things that you should not do and expect students to remember and keep that in their mind all the time. And so when you focus on, and shift that focus to more of a positive environment on what you should do, it shifts that focus and sets the expectation and the bar for students. We know that when we set the bar for students, they will meet it. It depends if you set it high or low. So it's setting a high bar of expectations. And students will meet those expectations if, one, they know what they are, two, they have the skills to meet those expectations, and three, they value the importance of those expectations. So in a school-wide positive behavior program, students are recognized for meeting those expectations, and they're still held accountable for some of the maybe not so good choices they may be making. Here's an example from Brook Elementary of their school-wide positive behavior program. They're focusing on respect for their school and community, acting responsibly, making safe choices, and showing that they care. So you can see how this is, again, really focusing on the learning environment, the various aspects of learning environment, whether or not you're in the hallway, the lunchroom, and so forth.
Dr. Murray, could I ask a question?
Sure.
To what extent is that consistent? Like, I know that all the elementary schools have a focus on respect and responsibility and so forth, but to what extent is this replicated to some extent?
Great question. All of our buildings have some type of school-wide program. They're not all exactly this. So not all of our buildings are doing this exact model. Some are doing a program such as this. This is Holly. This is a great example at Oaks. Holly is our silver hippopotamus on the left who lives at Oaks Elementary. And students, the theme for Oaks Elementary in the 2023 school year was Wild About Learning. So students, alongside with the principal, work to establish this, the expectations within the program, within the school rather, and then they earn these slips, the tickets. They get caught doing the right things, meeting those school-wide expectations. They then feed Holly every day, and then you'll see on the right pictures of students who were recognized for meeting those school-wide expectations. So while they may not all look the same as Brooke, all of our schools have something to this degree of a school-wide positive approach. And it may look like this in some of our other elementary schools, of just positive affirmations. These are pictures from Limerick Elementary. And if you walk through the halls of Limerick Elementary, you see these everywhere, including in the bathrooms. So it's really just, again, a really positive way to just send positive messages to students. Ultimately, we know that social emotional learning is a set of skills. It's a set of skills like understanding math. It's a set of skills like learning how to divide fractions. And we know that our students need to be taught those skills if we expect them to use them within the learning environment. Again, I keep going back to that concept, in the learning environment, because that's really our focus. So we have several activities. So this is what social emotional learning looks like at the elementary level. We have activities such as character education, recognizing and addressing bullying, guidance lessons, cyberbullying. At the middle levels, we see some of the similar activities. You'll see, again, that positive school climate, school guidance lessons, adolescent social emotional health issues, where the school counselors go into classrooms and address some of these concepts. And then at the high school level, we have, every year we have our QPR training, we have our resiliency teams, Unity Day, and a variety of other clubs, VEDM clubs, peer mentorships, and so forth. So I want to talk a bit about morning meeting. This is a topic that I know that I've talked about a little bit when we look at schedules, but I don't know that we've ever really gone into what morning meeting is. Morning meeting is an instructional approach to social emotional learning, primarily at the elementary level. It's based on the responsive classroom model and includes a variety of resources. Again, going back to what I talked about in the beginning, it's not one single program. It's a variety of resources that we use. It's whole class activities that typically occur first thing in the morning, and the idea is to really just jumpstart your day, get the students in the right frame of mind for learning, getting them feeling like they belong, and that's their classroom, it's their space. Sample activities could be just teaching students to greet each other, engaging in conversations, talking about their weekend, reading aloud a book and sharing and discussing themes, maybe doing a gratitude journal, or discussing some coping strategies, some stress management strategies, some mindful moments, activities such as that typically occur every morning in an elementary classroom. In addition, we also have pro-social meetings. This is more at the 5-6. This occurs Wednesday during flex time, and students discuss qualities and traits to build a better learning environment. Values we're focused on for the 2023 school year include honor, trust, grit, courage, joy, knowledge, respect, forgiveness, humility, and determination. And overall for this, students will participate in a class meeting, greeting, a sharing and discussing activity, and students learn activities just as simple as share one good thing from last week. Again, an opportunity for students to connect with each other that's not always necessarily directly connected with academics. I have a brief video for you just to highlight some of the other activities that we do. So in this activity, this is an activity occurring at Oaks Elementary where students are decorating kindness rocks. The idea behind this activity is that it's a whole school event where students are just drawing attention to the act of kindness and what it means to be kind and support each other. So students spend some time designing kindness rocks. In all of our buildings, we also have school counseling. Students can participate in small group counseling or lessons that are pushed into the classroom as well. And the idea behind this is that it's supporting students. It could be an activity like Lunch Bunch, where maybe students discuss conflict resolution or build some stress management strategies. Again, those softer skills that students need to build over time to help to be effective within the academics. This is John Hughes from Limerick. Our 9th grade QPR training and VEDM teams also participate in activities such as this. Again, the idea is students are working collaboratively in teams to solve problems, to be creative, to test ideas, to break ideas, but overall just to work together and maybe connect in a different way than in just a collaborative group discussing academics. So with this, students have the opportunity to connect with each other. I believe in the activity coming up next is the human knot, where they have to untangle each other, but it involves a great deal of communication, working together, and collaboration. Here's that human knot I was talking about. So overall, our buildings all have some form of social-emotional, building social-emotional activities that help support students. We also have the Pottstown Health and Wellness Grant that helps support us as well. The Pottstown Health and Wellness Grant focuses on the domains of wellness, which includes physical wellness, social-emotional wellness, mental health, and nutritional wellness. We include activities such as nutritional education and awareness. We did in this past year assemblies focused on nutritional choices. It funds our student leadership programs, the one we talked about a few weeks ago, or last month rather, are some staff wellness and professional development, as well as programs such as Unity Day, Peer Mentoring, Evitum, and Resiliency Club. So to make all of this happen, our staff have to be trained and feel comfortable. In order for this to happen, we really look for a variety of professional development. It is not necessarily just one program that we're using. Just as we're not using one single resource, we're not using one single source for professional development. We have a lot of Spring-Forward staff-led professional development. These are great because it means we're building our internal capacity, and we have really amazing stars within the district who have amazing talent in this area and like to share that, so that's really wonderful. The NAMI Foundation also works through Montgomery County to support the QPR training. We have used Tom Stecker and Associates, as well as Grow Now Executive Functioning. We also participated for 2 years in a row now in the MCIU MTSS event, the Patan event, MCIU Department of Organization Professional Learning, and also the responsive classroom and monitoring and morning meeting training. Questions?
Thank you, Dr. Murray. I will defer to the board first. Maybe we could go to Zoom to see if Dr. Motzer has any questions or comments.
I do, but give me a minute to get in a more quiet environment. I'll be right back.
Dr. Motzer, did you have a question or comment with regards to the SEL presentation? If not, I'll go to the in-person.
I do. Can you give me just 1 minute?
Oh, yes, of course.
Can you hear me? Okay, sorry, I was in a very noisy environment. So yes, I would like to make a comment speaking as the only member of this board who's currently teaching in a classroom with students. I need to echo the information that Dr. Murray has presented tonight. We as a board and a larger community need to listen to the professional experts in our district who are representing the professional experts who have published study after study on this topic. I would also like to note that the research and professional literature in this area is not new. We can look back over the past 20 years or more to learn about SEL. I have heard members of the community speak at various committee and board meetings. I have read a handful of emails attempting to discredit SEL. There seems to be a more recent interest in SEL, including some widely circulated narratives that are simply untrue, and they seek to undermine the trust and partnership that we have between schools and families. Now, in the past, I have chosen not to speak at the board meetings. I'm not going to engage with these individuals in the future, but I need to take this opportunity tonight to support social emotional learning in Springfield because I do not want my silence on this topic to be misconstrued in any way. I want to be very clear that it is essential that we honor the information presented by Dr. Murray. She is a true professional expert, an educator that we have employed as one of our top leaders in this district. And we also need to honor the professional experts in our classrooms who see social emotional learning as an essential component to their daily functioning. SEL is necessary. It allows our classrooms and schools to function, and it provides the environment and skills that our students will need to excel beyond our classrooms. So this is my opinion as one board member, but we are a public school system, and Springford should be fostering academic knowledge, yes, and also preparing students to be citizens within a social community by creating the skilled career-ready workforce that Dr. Murray mentioned. It is my opinion, my professional and personal opinion, that social emotional learning is crucial. And I want to unequivocally state my support for SEL in our district.
Thank you, Dr. Motzer. Dr. Wright.
Thank you very much, and thank you for sharing that, Dr. Motzer. I wrote a couple of notes down here, and first of all, I'd like to thank you very much for clearing up misinformation about what SEL is, and I'd like to echo some of what Dr. Motzer says. This has been around for a while there. I wrote down just some things here, and restorative practices versus discipline, which is so important right now at this time, that we are looking at ways, not just looking at things as being a disciplinary action, but restorative practices that students learn better about how to handle themselves and how to handle difficult situations. The bullying prevention program and the school-wide behavioral programs, when I taught 6th grade here in the district, I was a part of all of that, and I'm very happy to see that it continues. Some of that is state mandated. I know that we're required to verify to PDE how we are addressing bullying prevention, but I know that it was very valuable, and we had a lot of, between the counselors and the teachers, a lot of great insight into what our students needed, which was, then my next point, age appropriate. So SEL can look very different depending on the age of the student, what it's presented, how it's discussed, and sometimes it is much more involved in the curriculum. And I remember from my own days in my own high school experience where we had some really great debates and not everybody agreed on everything, but being able to look at different perspectives. And these are lifelong skills that our students need to be successful out within the community. So as part of the curriculum committee, you know that I focus a lot on our academic skills. We're talking about that a lot, and test skills and what we can do to provide the best academics. But the skills that you're talking about with SEL are vital for our students to be able to act upon the knowledge that they have, and to be able to go out in the world and flourish in whatever choices they make. So I did want to thank you for that, and never take your eye off the ball, that it continues to evolve and change in any way that I can help you as a board member to continue this valuable component to our education system. Please don't hesitate to ask. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wright. Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay. I will I have a couple here. So number one is, I do agree with Dr. Wright. I found the myths and misconceptions section to be very valuable. I know this year I've heard directly from the community with regards to, for example, if we're going to teach SEL, then what are we taking away? As if it is pie, which means that we're taking reading or math away. And I don't know that one was explicitly on there, but when I think about social and emotional learning, I think about it not being the what, but it's the how, right? So we're incorporating that into, weaving it throughout the way that we teach at Springford. Would you agree, disagree? What would be your response to that?
I think you're absolutely spot on. It's not a standalone curriculum for that exact reason. We're looking for the natural merges where it makes sense to fit together, and it supports and enhances what we can do with the academics. So the example I provided earlier of looking at current events, there's a ton of academic skills involved in there. You're not removing that and teaching SEL skills. You're using that as a way to take the content deeper. And looking for, again, those natural merges and connections within the curriculum.
Thank you. Two other questions, comments. Number one, I know that a lot of what was highlighted was at the elementary level, but I love that you highlighted what was going on with the 9th grade center with Avidum. My shirt is intentional today. With Avidum, as well as, I know we have the Resiliency Club at the high school. So, I guess my question is, what is your perception of the ability to weave and incorporate social emotional learning at the high school. Because like, just to be very frank, like we know that like as kids start to transition from building to building, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, you know, you don't just have the physical transitions, but you also have the emotional and the mental transitions, and kids are going through a lot at that time. So I can imagine that it's more challenging to address these skills as they get older. So I'm curious, like, what do you see as action items or next steps as it relates to imparting more of this at those higher grades?
What I think is important is as students get older and as we're working on these skills from a younger age, that the students are starting to take more ownership of that. And I want to go back to I want to go back to a slide real quick. But in one of the slides we see, no? Right here is a great example of our 7th grade Avidum Club. This was actually, if I'm not mistaken, Aaron had mentioned this to me earlier, that this idea came up from some students, and it became a school-wide program of where students then decided to put positive notes on all of the lockers. And so as the students got older, you'll see these are 7th grade Avidum students who end up going through the school, leaving notes on lockers and letting students, you know, just having that positive affirmation, again, leading to the overall community of the school. So I think over time, what's important is as we're building those skills, starting in kindergarten, that students are now starting to take ownership over those as they get older. So we have the life skills conference that our high school students are doing, where the idea behind that is they're learning some of these SEL skills, but more importantly, learning how to bring them back to us. Those students are then helping and leading some of our Unity Day programs, and so bringing it back to more of that positive peer influence. So we may not have an actual block of time at the high school like the elementary schools do, where we can do a morning meeting, or where our 5-6 can do the pro-social meetings, but that's where that weaving in is even more important. We do activities like assemblies as well, but we also recognize that assemblies are a moment in time. So it's how do we take that and then bring it further. So making sure, I know that one year we had positive notes left on our desk from the Avidum Club as well. So it's helping students take the ownership over it over time.
Thank you. And then maybe one final comment, and it's I'm sure no surprise to anyone that, you know, coming out of the pandemic, you know, we were faced with a lot of challenges as a district, and one of which is just reacclimating students to socialization and giving them opportunities to share their stories. And, you know, I think that while the district has made great strides in recovering in many different ways from the pandemic, I think that for me personally, and I'd speak for no one else on the board, like this is an area of priority for me, because I still don't think that we're exactly there yet. When you look at the research and when you hear the headlines around you know, kids' wellness and mental health. And so I would love, you know, again, of course, you know, the board, I'm only one person, but, you know, to be able to, as we head into next year, maybe even kind of revisit this topic and hear from, for example, those students who went to the life skills conference to understand what did they learn, what are they bringing back to Springford, because it's my understanding that like the Avidum Club and the Resiliency Club, a lot of the things that we're doing at the high school stems from this life skills conference, and I think that to be able to do a presentation and hear directly from students on that would be very valuable for me, but again, one person. Thank you. All right, any other questions or comments? All right, thank you, Dr. Murray.